Hey, Christine, just thought I would take some time to review your resume in a little bit more detail. Thanks for sending it over. I just wanted to go through it and just to give you some couple of pointers in terms of where I think you could potentially improve on this. First of all, I'll start with the things that I like. The thing that stands out most to me in terms of what's most impressive here is the design. I think it's better than most in general. And of course, being a graphic designer, it makes perfect sense that you would actually have some kind of graphical design here in your header sections and they're in the header and footer. So that's really great. That works. The other thing that I like is the fact that you've done a lot of bolding, or at least you've done bolding that kind of explains what you've done in each role in terms of from like a general perspective. I think that's really helpful too. And you've got the clear job titles in terms of what you did as well, which is awesome, and the company name. So you've got the basics done. The other things that kind of come to mind for me make it a little bit easier on the eye for recruiters and hiring managers. If a hiring manager is looking at your resume, I tend to hear from them is they candidates up front with the exact month and year that they started left an organization. So I noticed that you've got years down here, which is fine, but typically they want to also have the month. It's one of those little pesky that they tend to mention. I would recommend including the month that you lasted. So for example, if it's a role you was there for less than a year, put the month on it, hyphen, brackets, less than a year, which is what I would do. For example, I'll just show you something that I've got for one of my resume examples here. So let's say this particular role, I've got the month here, the year, and then what you would do is you would just get rid of all of this that I have here and then just put less than a year in brackets on that front. I think that would make it easier. And the other thing that comes to mind for me is there doesn't seem to be any metrics listed in your resume whatsoever. And I think this is probably the biggest deterrent that I'm seeing right now. You clearly explain exactly what you did. We can get a general sense of the day-to-day responsibilities and the nature of the projects. But what we don't have a way to be able to understand the impact that this work has delivered. For example, I've worked in marketing before, so I know that you worked in Canva to create dynamic ads. Like, there needs to be some kind of metric that shows, okay, so from you creating these dynamic ads, what was the impact of those? The reduction in, let's say, customer acquisition cost, an increase in CTR, those types of metrics are really relevant and they should also be bolded. This is something that I've done on mine, as you can see. The way that I did this particular example is I tend to show the impact first, followed by the nature of the project delivered, and where that impact came from. And then I follow it up by showing exactly what the project was that led to that. So in this case, converting a static changelog into a storytelling timeline. This just makes it easier for hiring managers and recruiters to see at a glance exactly what you did and the impact that you had. I would say that's something that you should do for each of them. Ideally, every single bullet point on here should have some kind of metric. And I'm trying to from around graphic design and working as a designer, whether that's for your own stuff in a traditional company, might not have like a specific metrics in mind for it. At the very least, you can include the metrics or an example of a metric impacted. So if you was working on marketing related stuff, then you include marketing metrics in there. The sales team, you're doing design, so their emails, for example, then you would want to include some metrics on that. Whilst you probably might not have those metrics to hand, you can guesstimate the kind of impact that it delivered during that time. There is nothing wrong with guesstimating it, in my opinion. It's of that. They're not going to reach out to your past employers or anything and ask what the actual metrics are. They don't really care about that, but they do want to see that the work that you are delivering is actually generating impact, which it clearly is, but they need to be told that. And so, for example, you use social media scheduling platforms as well. So you could, in here, you could actually mention something around a number of impressions that content has generated, number of leads that it may have generated, and or revenue for that particular marketing agency, Rambo. That's my assumption. So yeah, that's my recommendations when it comes to the actual bullets themselves. The next thing I would say is you want to also check to see that your resume can actually be parsed inside of an ATS platform. If you was to, in Google or using ChatGPT or something, and look an ATS checker, and you should be able to upload your resume to that, and it basically will be able to tell you whether or not your resume can be parsed. That's effectively essential for ensuring that when recruiters and hiring managers are viewing your application, when you send your applications in and they're looking at candidates, you want to make sure that your resume appears in the way that you want it to, and the copy and the lines don't end up jumping based on it. So for example, I just noticed that as I'm trying to highlight, I can't highlight any of the text in your resume whatsoever. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so I can highlight some of it. I can highlight the job titles, it seems. But again, it's kind of like jumping in different places. I can't actually highlight the specifics on that front. Let me just check on this one. Whereas mine, as you can see, I can highlight the exact text. So there's a very high chance that this will appear exactly as I specify inside of the ATS. So I think that's very, very essential. I mean, you can even see here, I've even made an error here with the indentation. But that's just to give you some points on that front. Let me see if there's anything else that comes to mind for me. Yeah, this is your summary section, which I think is pretty good. I think it would be great if you could highlight one or two of your best achievements, clear metrics. I noticed that you mentioned all the tools here, which I think is awesome. I think you've actually done a better job with your summary than I have with my example. But the one area that I think is missing from yours is probably just specifying what kind of metrics have helped to move and where you, on that front, in terms of where you specialize in that area. Yeah, like I said, the other thing that's missing from yours is, so on my example, I specify the industry experience that I have. So like which specific types of companies or organizations are you best suited to? And this is really effective because when you are applying, if you specialized in doing design for, let's say, clothing brands, you could mention it there. I mean, you didn't mention it here, branding specialty, including that. But if you said, industry experience, similar to like what I've got here, which I found to be really effective, is like specifying the exact type of company that you work in. So in my case, it would be marketing technology companies or HR technology companies. It just gives the recruiter like a snapshot look how much experience you have in a particular area, and can be really helpful on that front. Yeah, and that should be the purpose of the summary section. I've also noticed that your resume is 3 pages. Now, number of pages isn't really that much of an issue. The only thing that I would probably mention with that is the hiring manager, they have to scroll and scroll and scroll to see all your content. And it would be better if you could put as much information contained within a fewer pages, just from a psychology perspective, where the less they have to scroll, then the more they end up reading. So, for example, it could just be a case of simply reducing the font size of the description and your bullets, and then basically shifting everything up, so then you can fit in more roles on a singular page. The other thing that I think I'd noticed is, just trying to compare it with mine a bit. Yeah, the other thing that I've probably noticed is maybe the head is a little bit too big. It's not much of an issue, but I'm just trying to think of ways for you to be able to include more content here. But yeah, definitely working with the size of it and of like the bullets and the text, so that you can fit more roles on there. We just make it much easier. And then the last thing that I see, so you've got your list of clients down there as well. I don't really have any pointers on this front. I don't have any issues with it. And you already mentioned your skills at the very top, which I think is clever. You mentioned it there. We have bolding, maybe some of those. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much an overview in terms of what I would change from what you've got so far. You've got most of the basics down, I think. Just making sure that you can put more information on page, put the actual months that you stayed and left, and also put in brackets, the number of years that you spent there. So it's like, okay, from here, it's like May 2019 to May 2021, 2 years. So just put 2 years there. And if it's 1.5 years, for 1.5 years, it's 3 years. And, even though that's not exactly 3 years, but I just rounded it up and it's fine. And it just makes it easier for the recruiter to see, or the hiring manager to see, like, okay, I'm looking for someone who's got 7 years experience, and they can just go through your resume and they can see, okay, you've got 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and it's like, okay, you've got 7 years, and then it just makes it easier for them to make a positive decision in your application on my front. But I hope that this has been helpful. And if you need any more like questions or help on this front, feel free to just reach out to me via email and I will try to do my best to right path. But yes, I think this would actually be a really good start. It might also be worth taking a look at resume template that we've got in the marketplace area. In the marketplace resume template, which is actually built off of the example of my own that I've just shared with you now. And it should help you to be able to see exactly what I'd be looking for on a resume on that front if I was hiring. And when so take a look at that. But you've got the basics down already. It's just needs some tweaks just to ensure that it's actually readable and can be processed correctly. But I hope this helps, and I'll speak to you again soon. Take care. Bye.